Former President Donald Trump's civil business fraud trial gets underway today in New York, and more than 75,000 healthcare workers at Kaiser Permanente are preparing to go on strike later this week. Good morning. I'm Corva Coleman from NPR News, and here are today's top stories. Former President Donald Trump says he will be at the state courthouse today in New York City. He faces civil fraud charges that threaten some of his most iconic assets, including Trump Tower. NPR's Brian Mann reports.
Donald Trump and his associates, including his two sons, are accused of systematically overvaluing their properties by more than $2 billion in order to secure financing and make deals. In one case, New York Attorney General Letitia James says they inflated the square footage of a building by 300%. Last week, State Judge Arthur Engoron issued a summary judgment finding Trump did violate accounting rules. Engoron described Trump's valuations of his properties in financial statements as fantasy. Trump calls these claims a sham and says they're meant to cripple his presidential campaign. If the fraud charges hold up in court, Trump could lose control of many of his prize assets and be forced to pay a $250 million fine. This civil trial is unrelated to 4 criminal trials Trump faces in state and federal courts. Brian Mann, NPR News, New York.
The federal government did not shut down over the weekend after Congress passed a short-term spending bill. The legislation includes billions of dollars for U.S. emergency disaster help, but not a cent for aid to Ukraine. When the bill got to the Senate, Colorado Democratic Senator Michael Bennet held it up for a time until he got a commitment from leadership to debate funding for Ukraine.
This is one of those times when we can't afford to have an institutional failure. I think this is beyond politics. If we turn our back on Ukraine, we know from President Zelensky that Europe will turn its back on Ukraine and they will lose the war.
He spoke to NPR's Weekend All Things Considered. Meanwhile, Florida Republican Congressman Matt Gaetz is seeking to oust House Speaker Kevin McCarthy. Gaetz says that McCarthy broke his promises to hardline House Republicans by working with Democrats to pass the spending bill. More than 75,000 Kaiser Permanente healthcare workers across the United States are preparing to go on strike for 3 days. The walkout would start this Wednesday. As NPR's Danielle Kay reports, their union contract expired over the weekend.
These Kaiser workers whose contract expired on Saturday include nurses, lab technicians, pharmacists, and many others. They're represented by a coalition of 12 unions that's bargaining with Kaiser, one of the biggest healthcare providers in the U.S. The unions say Kaiser hasn't offered adequate solutions to end a staffing crisis, which they say is negatively affecting patient care and employees' well-being. Kaiser and the unions say they're willing to keep bargaining to reach a deal on a new contract. But if there's no agreement by Wednesday morning, tens of thousands of workers will walk off the job. Kaiser says hospitals and emergency departments would stay open in the event of a strike. Danielle Kay, NPR News.
Taylor Swift showed up at last night's NFL game between the Kansas City Chiefs and the New York Jets. NPR's Emma Bowman reports that Swift's star power is giving the NFL a big opportunity to cash in on her status.
The pop star returned to MetLife Stadium in New Jersey, but this time she wasn't the headliner, despite all the jokes on NBC's pregame show Football Night in America.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Eras Tour continues. Taylor Swift is in the building.
Swift was there to support Chiefs tight end Travis Kelce, but the Swifties still showed up. After the news dropped that the pop star would be there, the price for last-minute cheap seats rose by 10% on the ticket marketplace Game Time. Swift arrived at the stadium with a gaggle of A-list celebs, but the talk was all Taylor.
But I'm not going to make a Travis Kelce, Taylor Swift joke. I think we know those jokes all too well.
Swift's last showing at a Chiefs game drove up sales of Kelce's jersey by 400%. Emma Bowman, NPR News.
You're listening to NPR.